In September 2000, leaders from 189 countries met and signed the Millennium Declaration, which was committed to achieving 8 specific goals on our continent by 2015. These goals range from halving poverty to promoting gender equality and reducing child mortality. Although some successes were made, it was uneven, which means their achievements did not cut across globally. For instance, on the African continent, MDGs did not really achieve their set goals and targets. This, among many other factors, motivated a discussion on the post-2015 agenda, which will focus on building a sustainable world, but this time around include the environment, the physical, the social, as well as the health sectors. Hi guys, welcome to another episode. My name is MFA and I film all-round content here on this channel. However, I might want to focus on sustainability, sustainable values, and sustainable goals later on. I don't know, I'm still contemplating. If you are new here, I hope you subscribe to this channel after watching this video. And don't forget to hit that notification button so you're the first to know anytime I upload something new to this channel. And if you're already old and you're already part of the family, I want to say a big thank you for the love and the support, the likes, the comments. Thank you. In this video, I'll be diving a little into sustainable development goals on the African continent, their achievements, as in where Africa has gotten to in implementing SDGs, the challenges that Africa face in implementing SDGs, as well as my very opinion on how we can address these challenges, although nobody asked. But before before we start anything, we have to know what SDGs are and what they are seeking to achieve on the African continent by 2030. Sustainable Development Goals, or Global Goals, were adopted by the United Nations as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect our planet from climate change, and ensure that by 2030, all persons enjoy peace and prosperity on the earth. There are 17 interconnected goals that recognizes that action in one area will affect the outcome in another area. Don't worry if you don't really know what goes into the 17 SDGs. I am working on an upcoming series, and in there I will throw more light on the 17 sustainable development goals. Prior to, let me say, the evolution of the sustainable development goals, we had the MDGs, which was the Millennium Development Goals, and their key message was poverty eradication through participation in global trade system and accelerating economic growth. However, the MDGs did not achieve their set goals and targets due to incidents like weak governance, especially on the African continent. Moreover, the MDGs was set to expire by 2015, and that kind of motivated a conference which was held at Rio de Janeiro, Rio de Janeiro, Rio de Janeiro in Brazil in 2015. Now, with this, the UN chose and voted 17 universally applicable goals that will transform the world from 2015 to 2030. Africa has made significant progress towards achieving sustainable development goals, and as at 2020, the average score across all African member states was 64%, and that shows an increase from the 2019 average score. Africa has recorded a decrease in child and maternal death, decrease in the risk or incidence of infectious diseases, increase in primary school enrollment, increase in women participation, among others. Now, on the African continent, North Africa is the best performing region when it comes to implementing sustainable development goals, with Central Africa being the worst performing region. Now, although achievements have been made, progress has either been too slow or stagnant. That is, Africa still faces significant challenges in implementing certain sustainable development goals. Before I start anything, we need to know that sustainable development goals are highly ambitious in their hope for inclusion and equality in society by 2030. So what then are the challenges Africa face in implementing sustainable development goals? I've read quite a number of articles explaining these challenges, but then I would say the most pressing one has to do with big government that calls into action ineffectiveness, mismanagement, corruption, and then the likes. Also, we have cases like discrimination, the geographical location, other infectious diseases like Ebola, and then the special cases of COVID-19. All these are some of the challenges Africa face in implementing sustainable development goals. So I've written some few points here. I don't want to forget because I want to present everything I came to present. So permit me if I look down so I can remember my lines very, very well. So government is first on my list because most African countries battle with ineffective government. And ineffectiveness falls into action, mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, corruption, among many others. Also, in most African countries, it is highly common to find the poor, disadvantaged, or marginalized in communities having the least to say in decisions that affect them, but are also likely to be included in any data that concerns them. Subsequently, extreme inequalities in the African continent poses serious challenges in achieving the sustainable development goals. That is, it is very common to find children in the poorest part of the population die before their fifth birthday than it is in the richest part of the population. That's not all. Children in the poorest part of the population face discrimination and exclusion, and that puts them at risk of contracting HIV. And we all know HIV is like one of the leading causes of death among our female population. Also, forces like globalization, technological development, as well as climate change, has a tendency to push vulnerable groups further into extreme poverty. For instance, in rural communities where farming is their major source of livelihood, climate change and its catastrophic events like drought poses great challenge to these farming communities because they are likely to lose their jobs, there's likely to be food insecurity, and also their incomes are likely to be reduced. Also, floods, especially in urban centers, destroy homes and livelihoods as well. Now, subsequently, the geographical location of a person can determine whether he or she has access to immediate medical care or attention. For instance, although there has been a decline in maternal and child mortality on the African continent, it is uneven. That is, it is highly common to find pregnant women die in remote areas than it is in urban centers. Now, speaking on the special case of COVID-19, although African countries have made commitment towards achieving sustainable development goals, it may be compromised by the impact of COVID-19. Now, during COVID, we all witnessed how countries were trying to reallocate their resources to meet up with growing demands, while other countries went into like a complete state of lockdown to reduce the spread of the disease as well as save lives. Also, in sub-Saharan African countries, quick responses prevented the exponential increase of cases. The whole world is facing the challenge of COVID-19, but global south countries are at higher risk. Why? Study shows that the pandemic affects all segments of the population, but it's critical to those living in poverty or people living without access to health services or limited health services. Then again, SDG 1, SDG 2, SDG 3, as well as SDG 8 are more affected by the COVID-19, but it's also likely to affect other sustainable development goals because, of course, they are interconnected. So, taking Sustainable Development Goal 1, for instance, before COVID-19, the 2030 poverty forecast was 26%, which was far reaching the Agenda 2060 goal. Now, however, the World Bank predicts that about 60 million people globally will be pushed into extreme poverty, and of which 23 million of such people are located in sub-Saharan African countries. Based on assumption of 2 month lockdown and 40% production capacity, the African continent is likely to see a recession of -1 to -3% in 2020. That's technical, so let me break it down a little bit to give us a better understanding. So during lockdown, working hours was reduced from like let's say the normal working hours, or let's say if you go to work 6 times a day, this time around it was cut down to like let's say 4 times a day. In some cases, the company organization had to shut down. This affected production of goods and services, and that translated into recession, reduced income, loss of livelihoods, among others. So, on SDG or Sustainable Development Goal 2, COVID-19 restricted the movement of people and trade across borders, which translated into food insecurity across nations. During lockdown, many countries close their borders to reduce the spread and risk of the disease. Now, one thing we have to know is that when governments restrict movements, it is likely to reduce the or lead to shortage of labor, raw materials, as well as price fluctuation, which could result into food crisis, hunger, and malnutrition, especially in children. On Sustainable Development Goal 3, which stands for, I think, good health and general well being, we all know Africa is already facing challenges with cases of Ebola and other infectious diseases. That aside, the continent has severe workforce shortage and is likely or estimated to reach 6.1 million by 2030. With COVID-19, health workers were shifted to COVID centers in order to administer care to infected persons, and that exacerbated the challenges we are already facing now. And one thing we have to know is that the reason why African countries face shortage in their health workforce is because most of this health personnel are migrating to the European countries to seek better job opportunities or like better incentives, because even in here we don't really have like very good infrastructures to accommodate them when they are done with their course, when they are done pursuing their course. In all, Africa is faced with the great challenge of building sustainable economies. And in my humble opinion, if we are seeking to address that challenge, then Africa should be willing to invest into research and development. Now, one major reason why I think other continents or countries are ahead of Africa is because they invest massively into research and development. Also, Africa should promote education as well as massive campaigns on sustainable values. Africa needs to reform their institutions, and stakeholders should ensure that the poor, the marginalized are their topmost priorities in all their activities. I feel Africa can learn from the likes of Southern America, specifically that of Brazil, because they are a clear example that global South countries can overcome economic and political challenges and build successful and sustainable economies. As the worst of the crisis passes, I hope and pray that the common vision adopted in 2015 for the people, for prosperity and peace will guide us to a sustainable world. If you find this video very educative, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment, share, like, do everything you have to do to make sure this channel grows. I appreciate it if you watch it from the beginning to this end, or from the beginning to the end, and I'm hoping to see you in my next video. Bye.